You have a good weekend as well.
Have a great show and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Friday, June the 16th, 2023. And our calling number is 563-999-3581. And press 1. And that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Excuse me, I had to mute there so I could cough. So while we're waiting on Michael to dial in, I'll just say that, there's been a few changes. And under the Global Book Club, of course, they're doing, Michael is co-facilitating with Jenka on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. And then they were doing the Course in Miracles. She has something else scheduled the first Thursday of each month. So then they're going to do a Course in Miracles on the third and fifth Thursday of each month. So the next one...
when there is a fifth Thursday.
Right. And I think there are until we're just committing to the next 3 months, and then or 3 sessions of the Course in Miracles, and we'll see how we go from there. It'll be live after that. You want to explain that, Michael, how we're doing it?
Yeah, what we did, we've done 1 session of the Course in Miracles, and we've got 4 videos in our DVD catalog or streaming catalog that people can buy on our website. And so we just decided to go ahead and let those loose and let them be used for this Hear My Voice book club out of London, England. So you'll be able to hear 4 of the videos that are course-related, that normally are, things you have to buy in order to hear them. And so they'll be available in our archives. Once that's complete, we always make that available, so you all have access to those. And then we'll do a Q&A session. The last session was last week, or I guess it's 2 weeks ago now. In any event, that session is available if you want to check it out on our YouTube channel. So, Introduction to Advanced Understanding of A Course in Miracles. And the next one, which will be the third Thursday of June, right? Or July?
No, you're doing the 3rd and the 5th. So the next one will be June the 29th.
So we'll get one in this month still. Cool. So that'll be Wide as the World, which you've heard me do allude to that lesson, and this is a pretty comprehensive covering of that lesson. So, and then we'll do a Q&A. So welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here, honored, and appreciate the fact that we get to have this conversation with you, whether you talk to us or not, that we get to have it with you, and we get to bring forward these amazing principles directly from A Course in Miracles, tying it in with the why work as well. They're really kind of indistinguishable. The only 2 places on planet Earth that I have found the exact and specific methodology and definition for what forgiveness is and how to forgive. One of them is in the ancient Aramaic language, comes out of the Kabbalah manuscript, which is a copy of the oldest known New Testament in its original Aramaic language. And A Course in Miracles, identical methodology for forgiveness, which is, for me, complete verification, since it's such a complex and illogical thing until you understand how the mind works. Forgiveness is totally illogical, a la first century Aramaic Yeshua. Once you understand how the mind works, once you've got that technology down pat, it is absolutely brilliant in terms of its effect on our mental state, our emotional state, as well as our physiology. And so that's the path we're traveling with the Course, and we'll be doing that with the Hear My Voice book club, as well as the second and fourth Thursday of each month, we do a chapter in the book. Why is this happening to me? And I think we're heading into chapter 6 with the next one. So delighted that you're here with us.
And I'm not sure she's at a place where she can talk, but we were going to share what Urate's facing. But Urate, if you're where you can talk, if you would like to share it yourself, I've just turned your microphone on. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Urate. How are you, young lady?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, it depends on the day, depends on the hour, but overall I'm doing good.
Yeah, you're definitely going through a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying my best just to stay connected to love and not to allow the fear to move me in a different direction. And trust that whatever came our way to experience is part of what I agreed here to do. So there's sometimes it still shows up, you know, and in the most innocent ways, you know, like it feels like I was making this one appointment for my son, and I was talking to the receptionist, and like just saying his name and the birthday, and as soon as she asked me the diagnosis, and I said his diagnosis loud, I just couldn't talk anymore. Like my throat was, you know, all constricted, and the tears were flowing, and I was just like breathing, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "I am okay," and at the same time, I said, "I am very emotional about it." So,
certainly understandable.
So, yeah, it was good that today he is feeling better today. So that was definitely a big relief to see him a little bit having a pause of the pain. I've learned how hard it is to be next to someone that is in pain that, you know, I can't do much about it, and just be with them and
right.
keep guiding them to breathe and you know, kind of questioning myself, is that breathing really going to work? You know, because when I see that it's like so much pain, and I was like, wow. And understanding that any pain is a constriction and stuck energy, you know, and so I want to say thank you, everyone, for holding space. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and your voice is a little difficult to hear, Urate, with the background noise, but for people who may not have heard, Urate's son, who's 25, I believe you said? His name is
24.
Tomas, and 24, and he was diagnosed recently with cancer, and he's got quite a bit of pain and is working through that pretty bravely, and so know that Urate, for you and Tom and the whole family, and especially for Tomas, we're here just extending love in your direction, holding the space. Did we lose her, Jeannie?
I muted her. I've just turned her microphone back on.
Oh, okay.
I muted her so the road noise wouldn't overpower what you were saying there, too. So you're back on, Urate.
Thank you. I had this conflict inside, you know, like, do I want to share this? Do I don't want to share? You know, is that adding to the energy? But from my experience with the sharing it, I felt asking people to hold a space for the healing and just really helped, and it helped him, like, even in the physical, you know, how he felt. It was just amazing, like me sharing that on, you know, on the radio show, or sharing on Facebook and Instagram accounts, you know, how much support it was flowing his direction, and I could see how his pain was affected by that. It was less pain, you know, so it was just really neat.
Right.
like to understand
Yes, sir.
how we are all interconnected and how, there is no far distance, it doesn't matter how far or close you are.
Well, one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is the one where he says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. Our minds show us something that isn't true. And the truth is we are all connected, and therefore whatever energy we extend to another, we, one, give or inflict, depending what the energy is, on ourselves and on them as well. And of course, if they're not in resonance with it, then, if it's something that someone wants to inflict on another, there's nowhere for it to land if there's none of that energy within that other individual. And otherwise, just the presence of love is the master healer. So you've got a whole community of people here that are right now sending that love in your direction and in Damas's direction, consciously, purposely, knowing the healing power of that presence.
And Damas has been amazingly opening up, and it's just what a huge initiation for somebody at this young age, And it was huge to hear, when he was going through some procedures like MRI, where he's claustrophobic, so seeing that, I was just inside of it, and I would just keep repeating to myself, I am loved and I'm helped, I'm loved and I'm helped. And he said, I just noticed how my body was just easing up, and I felt comfortable being. And so it was really neat. Or, before he would go into some procedures, that they had for him to sleep, to just remember the true essence of who you are. And he would just smile and say, yes, I'm loved.
Well, joining you in holding that space as powerfully as we can. Is there anything else for you to share today, or any other way we can support you?
I think we're in here grateful, so I think we're good for now.
All right. Well, we cherish you. Appreciate you. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's see if we have any questions from the last couple of days of doing the emotional release. Press 1 if you have a question. And then if there are no questions, I'll go into reading.
And if you're out there in listener land, our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show directly. And then if you have a question, push 1, and through the magic of technology, Gene will see your hand go up and know you want to chat with us, and we'll be having a conversation. So 563-999-3581, push 1. Let's talk about it. What's on your mind? So do you have any email questions for today, Jeannie?
No, I do not. We answered Sarah's yesterday about why she was unsuccessful with the release. And I was saying that I have experienced myself, as well as seen other people experience, that as when they first do the release, there might be some small thing like, a little tingling or just that the picture of the person that they were going to release disappears or something like that. But then it could be not until the next event that would normally trigger around that person, and it happens and there's no emotional trigger. It's just an event. And so it's oh, okay, the release must have worked.
Releasing emotional attachments. That's it exactly.
Right. So if there's no hand up, I didn't read I think I've missed 2 days reading, but just because the other was more important at the moment to continue talking about the emotional release. So what we talked about, what I read the last time, it's out of the 5th chapter, or the 6th chapter of Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul. And this one's called The Secrets of the Spiritual Heart. And one of the examples at the end of the last reading that I did was talking about, you're driving down the road and you see all these cars and they're in and out of your consciousness with no emotional impact or anything until you see a light blue. The example they gave was a light blue Ford Mustang, which was just like his girlfriend's car. And noticed that there were 2 people hugging in the front seat. At least they looked like they were hugging, and it sure looked like her car. But it was just a car, just like all the other cars. Except it wasn't like all the other cars to you. And that's where we stopped. So let's look carefully at what happened. Surely for the camera of the eyes, there's no difference between that car and the other cars. There's light bouncing off of objects, passing through your retina, making a visual impression on your mind. So at the physical level, nothing different is going on. But at the mental level, the impression didn't make it through. When the next moment comes, you no longer notice the rest of the trees, you're not seeing the rest of the cars. Your heart and mind are fixated on that one car, even though now it's gone. You've got yourself a problem here. There's a blockage, an event that got stuck. All the subsequent experiences are trying to pass through you, but something has happened inside that has left this past experience unfinished. What happens to that experience that didn't make it through? Specifically, what happens to the image of girlfriend's car if it doesn't just fade away into deep memory like everything else? At some point, you'll have to stop focusing on it in order to deal with something else, like the next stoplight. What you don't realize is that your entire experience of life is about to change because of what didn't make it through you. Life must now compete with this blocked event for your attention. And the impression does not just sit in there quietly. You will see that your tendency is to think about it constantly. This is all in an attempt to find a way to process it through your mind. You didn't need to process the trees, but you need to process them. Because you resisted, it got stuck. And now you have a problem. You see, the thoughts start up. Well, maybe it wasn't her. Of course it wasn't her. How could that possibly have been her? Thought after thought goes on inside. It drives you crazy in there. All that inner noise is just your attempt to process the blocked energy and get it out of the way. Long term, the energy patterns that can't make it through you are pushed out of the forefront of the mind and held until you are prepared to release them. These energy patterns, which hold tremendous detail about the events associated with them, are real. They don't just disappear. When you're able to allow life events to pass through you, they stay inside and become a problem. When you are unable to allow life events to pass through you, they stay inside and become a problem. These patterns may be held within you for a very long time. It's not easy to keep energy together in one place for long. As you willfully struggle to keep these events from passing through your consciousness, the energy first tries to release by manifesting through the mind. This is why the mind becomes so active. When the energy can't make it through the mind because of conflicts with other thoughts and mental concepts, it then tries to release through the heart. And they're talking about the spiritual heart. That is what creates all the emotional activity. When you resist even that release, the energy gets packed up and forced into deep storage within the heart. In the yoga tradition, or yogic tradition, That unfinished energy pattern is called samskara. This is a Sanskrit word meaning impression, and in the yogic teachings, it is considered one of the most important influences affecting your life. A samskara is a blockage, an impression from the past. It's an unfinished energy pattern that ends up running your life. In order to understand this, let's first...
Just hearing the way that he's describing that, that would be the identical concept to the word sin from the Aramaic, the archery term, that when you fired at the target and missed the bullseye, the scorekeeper would yell sin. You're off the mark. An energy that doesn't belong in the system, that someone's unwilling to experience from a place of or from a perspective of love, and therefore be able to process through it. So there's a perfect parallel there with the Aramaic, at least for me.
I can see that. So in order to understand this, let's first take an in-depth look at the physics behind these blocked energy patterns. Just like energy waves, the energy that comes into you must moving. But that doesn't mean it can't get blocked within you. There is a way that the energy can both keep moving and stay in one place, and that is to circle around itself. We see this in atoms and in planetary orbits. Everything is energy, and energy will just expand out if it's not contained. For there to be manifest creation, energy must get in the dynamic of cycling around itself to create a stable unit. That's why energy manifesting as an atom forms the basic building block of this entire physical universe. Energy cycles around itself, and as we've discovered, atoms have enough harnessed energy to blow up the world when the energy is released. But unless forced otherwise, the energy will stay harnessed because of its equilibrium state. This process of cycling energy is exactly what happens with a samskara. A samskara is a cycle of stored past energy patterns. In a state of relative equilibrium, it is your resistance to experiencing these patterns that causes the energy to keep cycling around itself. There is no other place for it to go. You won't let it. That is how most people process their issues. This packet of cycling energy is literally stored in your energetic heart center. All the samskaras you have collected over your life are stored there. To fully appreciate what this means, let's go back to the example of the light blue Mustang that looked like your girlfriend's car. Once the disturbed energy patterns are packaged and stored in the heart, they are basically inactive. It may look to you like you have handled the situation and that you have no more issues with that experience. You may not even mention the event to your girlfriend because it would look like you were jealous. You didn't know what to do, so you resisted the energy and it got stored in the heart where it could fall into the background and not be bothersome. While it may seem like it's done, like it's all over and gone, it really isn't. Every one of the samskaras that you've stored is still there. Everything that you did that did not make it through you, from the time you are a baby all the way to this moment, is still inside of you. It's these impressions, these samskaras, that encrust the value of the spiritual heart. The incrustation builds up and restricts the energy flow. Would you like me to stop there?
Well, I'm enjoying what you're reading, but I'd like to throw in a thought or two. And, one of the thoughts in Why Is This Happening to Me Again that we put out is that the way you acquire a past about something is to hold your breath around it. And if you think about the samskaras as he's describing them, or the sins in your life, the things, again, the word not being the Greek idea of something, whatever people have believed about sin, but it just being this archery term that means off the mark. you'll notice that when those energies try to move, the tendency is to hold the breath. And then, in holding the breath, resist feeling or experiencing it. And this is how one acquires a past about something, and it's how one creates an unnatural condition called an unconscious mind. And then what happens, because we won't allow ourselves to directly experience that energy out of the space of love that we are, is that energy will acquire a certain amount of force, a certain amount of impetus, until it blasts through to the surface, but it will blast through to the surface distorted and massaged to look like somebody or something else. It will tend to blast through and be massaged into, an old energetic pattern or samskara or sin that somebody today resonates. What the average person does is they blame the person that they're focused on for what's moving within them, and they massage that samskara, that energetic pattern that's in the unconscious, into a picture that makes it look like that energy is about somebody outside of us. And there, and it's interesting to hear him use the word resistance there, because in Aramaic, the word Satan does not mean the Greek dude with the red suit, the tail, and the pitchfork. The word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. When we have something that we refuse to allow conscious admittance to, we refuse to allow it to come to conscious awareness in the presence of love, then projection happens. We turn it into something that it is not. So now when a person is, let's say someone's visibly disturbed, holding their breath, and you say, gee, what's happening for you? And if you feed back to them, gee, I've noticed you've done this many times in your life. I've been watching you for a long time. And they'll go, no, you don't understand. This isn't about me. There's the resistance. And then the mislead. This is about Bill over there. It's his fault that I'm feeling this. You saw what he did to me, didn't you? And somebody has a whole reality that is a reflection of the unconscious dynamic that was acquired at some time in the past. And this is what leads people into the proverbial, why is this happening to me again experience. So the breath is a key element. I don't know whether he's going to get into that, but let's go ahead and read and see if he does.
All right. Now that we understand where the blockages within the heart come from, we have answered the structural question of how the heart gets blocked. You can certainly see the potential for impressions to build up to the point where very little energy can make it through. If they build up sufficiently, you will find yourself in a state of depression. In that state, all becomes dark. This is because very little energy is coming into your heart or mind. Eventually, everything appears negative because the world of the senses must pass through this depressed energy before it gets to your consciousness. But even if you aren't prone to depression, your heart still gets blocked over time. It just builds up. It doesn't always stay blocked, however. Depending upon life's experiences, it can open and close quite frequently. This leads us to our next question. What is the cause of these frequent changes in the state of the heart? If you watch carefully, you'll see it is related to the same stored past impressions that cause the blockages. The stored energy patterns are real. A samskara is actually programmed with the specific details of the event that could not pass through. If you experienced jealousy because you thought you saw your girlfriend hugging someone in a car, very detailed data about that event is stored in the samskara. It has that event's vibration, it has that event, and it even retains your level of sensitivity about the event. That's kind of like you talk about things being crystallized and that they hold the thought, the feeling, and even the drug that suppressed them.
Right. And, you would hear, if Yeshua were listening to this writing right now, you would hear Yeshua saying, so now remember, folks, I told you, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in your life. Most everybody who from the earliest ages became card-carrying members of the one world universal religion of blame thinks, no, I don't need to take care of my heart, what's going on inside me. I need to take care of Bill over there. It's he that is the cause of my issues. And thus we project the dissociated content that which we were unwilling to have passed through us, unwilling to experience truthfully and honestly. And what the Aramaic forgiveness process does, the piece that Aramaic forgiveness gives, is it gives the specific methodology for collapsing the end result of this process of this samskara taking over the mind. This past issue being formulated into something that looks like it's caused by somebody else. And when you apply the process of forgiveness, you literally open the veil of the temple, the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. You enter into that unconscious space, or what's being referred to here as the heart. Take care of what's there, because that's what formulates the perceptual constructs of the moment. And so most people are living in constructs of things, yes, resonated by the present moment, but things that were acquired oftentimes decades, perhaps centuries ago through our genetics. And so to recognize that everything the mind comes up with that's based in any form of hostility or fear is a fit subject for forgiveness, to reach in and remove those energetic patterns and become freed from them, freed from one's samskaras, or in the Aramaic, sin. Two seemingly different systems, but really anything that has worked over an extended period of time to bring joy and aliveness and healing into people's lives has to work by the same principle. I don't care, Jeannie and I were having this conversation the other day, it doesn't matter whether it was the Buddha that said it, or whether it was Muhammad that said it, or whether it was Yeshua, or whether it was Abraham or Isaac. It doesn't matter. There's only one operative principle in the universe when it comes to death, disease, and suffering, and when it comes to healing, aliveness, and joy. There's only one process. There's only one thing to talk about. Now, I love what, let's see, what's his name? Winston Churchill said we have the privilege of being separated common language. We think because somebody uses a different word that they must be talking about something different. But there's only one set of principles that operate in the universe. And anything that's been around for an extended period of time, even if it's so culturally different from what we believe, it's as valid as what we're doing today because it's still here and it's working. If it's producing that state of life and aliveness and harmony between neighbors, family, and friends. So it's interesting to hear, and that's, of course, Michael Singer's coming from an Eastern perspective, and certainly sounds different, but is identical to the first century Aramaic language, right on up to, we could turn the language one more direction and speak it in Course in Miracles language. You know, I love what the Course says in the introduction. It talks about how this course is a required course. Only the time you take it is optional. And it's only one form of the course. What tends to happen is people get egotistical, people who won't do their work, and they need to have the supreme leader. And so they name their guru, whether it's Yeshua or, oh, nobody would use that word for Yeshua. Well, that's the way most people treat him. They don't follow what he says to do. They don't actually live the teaching, for instance, of forgiveness and honoring neighbors. That means they've got a guru. They're not living the teaching. The real teacher, as Yeshua presented, is inside of you, and that's the one that you really want to build and develop conscious relationship with and process through it. And then what you'll see is the principle behind the healing process appears in different forms in different cultures all over the world. And people are murdering each other because, well, your culture is different than mine. My God can beat up your God. I mean, it's all just old hostility, fear, and projection of the non-human mind. Unresolved or unresolved sin in the Aramaic sense, energies that are off the mark, samskaras in this ancient Eastern perspective. Time to clean it up. Go for it, sweetie.
Okay. So to see this, let's watch what happens in the future. It's 5 years later. You're no longer with your old girlfriend. You've married someone else, and you're much more mature. One day you're out driving along with the family, having a wonderful time. The trees are going by, the cars are going by, and then a light blue Mustang drives by with two people hugging in the front seat. Immediately, something changes in your heart. Your heart actually skips a beat, and then it starts beating faster. You start getting moody, irritated, agitated. You aren't having a nice day anymore. All of these inner changes occur because your heart got disturbed when you saw one particular car. It is truly amazing to step back and look at this process. 5 years ago, for just a few moments, an event took place. You never discussed it with anybody, and now 5 years later, a light blue Mustang drives by, and it changes the energy flow through your heart and mind.
And
it's unbelievable.
And you may not have even consciously seen the blue Mustang today when it happened. That may have gone by with no conscious awareness whatsoever, but because of the way the mind works in this law of resonance, if that old samskara, that old disintegrative energy was resonated into activity, gee, why, we were having fun just a little while ago. Why are you so miserable? I don't know. It can be totally, completely unconscious when things like that are stirred. And that's why, one of the things we put forward all the time is step back from your own mind, become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. And when something's moving in you that is of an untoward quality of energy, allow yourself to be aware of it and do the work around it, even if it wasn't something that you're conscious of that triggered it into activity. It's so important because literally the energy processes, when he speaks of the samskara, or when the Aramaic speaks of sin, you'll notice they say the wages of sin is death. What does that mean? If I put it I can remember being a kid and thinking, oh, I'm being threatened by God. God's going to get me for my sins. I'm going to die as a result of it. And then when I grew up and got an adult mind and put away the things as a child, I realized that what he's saying is the result of putting a disintegrative energy anywhere in your tissue structure is your tissue structure starts to break down. If you get enough breakdown going on, you die. And it's literally physiologically true. What I'm not willing to process is the only thing that could ever create enough disturbance and dis-ease in the energy system called tissue that we see it becoming physical disease. And again, these things go on generation after generation after generation after generation. And on occasion, and one of the reasons why it takes dedication to developing the ability to use the tools and the awareness is that when you start dealing with something that, maybe happened 5 generations ago in your bloodline, to allow that to come forward in a way that is comprehensible for you and that you can deal with it takes practice, takes working with the tools over an extended period of time to develop the brain cells to be able to do the deeper, more important aspects of the inner work.
Awesome. As unbelievable as it seems, it's true. And it's not only true about light blue Mustangs. It's true about everything that didn't make it through. No wonder we're so overwhelmed. No wonder the heart keeps opening and closing. The energy that's stored there is real, and it interacts with the flow of current thoughts and events. The dynamics of this interaction, vibrations that are stored as samskaras to get activated, sometimes years later. That is what happened with the light blue Mustang. Understand, however, it didn't even have to be the identical car to activate the stored energy. It could have been a black Mustang or any car with people hugging. Anything in the neighborhood has the potential to stimulate a samskara. The point is that past impressions do get stimulated, even old ones, and they affect your life. Sensory inputs from today's events dig through all the stuff that you've stored through the years, and they restore the exact past patterns associated with the incoming event. When a samskara is stimulated, it opens like a flower and begins to release the stored energy. Suddenly, flashes of what you experienced when the original event took place rush into your consciousness. The thoughts, the feelings, sometimes even the smells and other sensory inputs. The samskara can store a complete snapshot of the event, and it is way beyond any computer storage system created by human beings. It can archive everything you were feeling, everything you were thinking, everything that was happening surrounding the event. All this information is stored into a tiny energy bubble within your heart. Years later, it gets stimulated.
And at the same time as, say, something from, when the event happened with the Mustang, was resonated into activity. The marriage that fell apart 2 generations ago is resonated into activity, and the death of a spouse that happened 7 generations ago and was never resolved, became a samskara, is resonated into activity. All of those things come into play, and anything of any similar patterned energy can be resonated into activity by anything in today's world. I remember there's a book written by a chiropractor, this goes back decades ago, and it was called Anything Can Cause Anything, Anything Can Cure Anything. And it came from an understanding of this law of resonance. And when we hold patterns of untoward energy, sin, samskaras, they are held in files, so to speak, or containers that hold any pattern similar to that that's been unresolved throughout our whole bloodline, throughout the generations. So that's why oftentimes it can become disproportionately intense, because it's not just, that little spat there was around the Mustang and the hugging of somebody else, that was just a minor little thing. But if it hooked into those other generational patterns that were unresolved, all of a sudden this just becomes a monstrous, explosive type of thing. And people don't, if they're not conscious, if they can't recognize if they're not acquainted with their own internal dynamics, then the mind shoots up this construct called perception. And to relate it to the show we did the other day with releasing the attachments, that all of the emotional attachments connected to that are what cause it to be such an explosion, and to generate, because of denial, because I say to myself, I'm experiencing this because of that out there, I literally generate a symbol of my pain out of relative data to whatever I'm focused on out there. And you become the problem in my life, but what I'm projecting into that, the energetic patterns that are going into that reality structure, and that trauma and pain could be, 20 generations of unresolved trauma. And that's why ultimately one has to develop the skills to process through those layers and those levels. And as you develop the skills, you become more vital and more empowered to handle those deeper energy dynamics. Great writing, Michael. Referring to Michael Singer, whose book Jeannie's reading, if you didn't catch that when we started. Right on track.
All this information is stored into a tiny energy bubble within your heart. Years later, it gets stimulated, and instantly you are experiencing the feelings you felt in the past. You can actually feel the fears and the insecurity of a 5-year-old when you're 60. What is happening is that unfinished mental and emotional energy patterns are getting stored and reactivated. But it's just as important to...
And we've developed cultures where authorities, having an understanding of this dynamic, purposely instill trauma into a child. It's called punishment. It's called vengeance. It's called rage. And when that's purposely put into a child, it adds energy to those dynamics, which seems to make the whole process of healing that much more difficult and that much more demanding. And it is. It really, you know, if you look in the ancient teachings, they said that you had to tithe. Now, a lot of people are out there for a buck told you tithing had to do with giving them money. But the real tithe is putting your time and intelligence, yes, money too, and energy into your healing process, that you take, at least set your life up so that 2.4 hours a day, 10% of a 24-hour day, is dedicated toward your healing work, toward your inner work, instead of everything being focused out there and what's the distractions of the world. You know, you go back as far as the Romans, and they had the bread and circuses. They knew how to keep people distracted. And when you can keep people distracted, you can take advantage of them. And, you know, basically the king can steal just about everything from them. And as long as their bellies are full, usually with junk food, and you keep them entertained, keep the titillating emotional energy going, keep the war machine going, keep the, you know, the violent movies going, and don't teach people to process what those violent things bring up in them, and you can just keep them running from one samskara to another, to another, to another, totally and completely unconscious.
But it is important to realize that most of what you take in does not get blocked. It makes it right through you. Imagine how many things you see all day. They're not all stored like that. All of these impressions, the only ones that get blocked are those that cause either problems or some extraordinary sense of enjoyment. Yes, you store positive impressions too. When a wonderful experience happens to you, it doesn't make it through because you cling to it. Clinging means, I don't want this one to go away. He told me he loved me, and I felt so loved and protected. I want to keep reliving that moment. Play it back for me over and over again. Clinging creates positive samskaras, and when those are stimulated, they release positive energy. Hence, two kinds of experiences can occur that block the heart. You are either trying to push energies away because they bother you, or you're trying to keep energies close because you like them. In both cases, you're not letting them pass, and you are wasting precious energy by blocking the flow through resisting and clinging. It made me think, you know, you tell people you can do a worksheet on the positive as well as the negative. If you think anything outside of you makes you happy, it's the same as thinking something outside of you makes you sad.
Exactly. And in each case, forgiveness is the solution, because if you're experiencing that samskaras, he's talking about them from the past that were wonderful, and you keep trying to pull it forward to experience it now, you're dead to the present. You're not alive as a human being in this present moment, seeking something from the past or getting trapped in something painful from the past. Either way, it's a trap. And the idea of this work is to become freed of any energetic pattern based in hostility or fear, or in the desire for something from the past, so that we're alive in the present moment and having a live present moment experience continuously. When we're distracted by bread and circuses and all the stuff of the world, it's just a replay of the past, not a conscious life being consciously lived.
It goes on to say, the alternative is to enjoy life instead of clinging to it or pushing it away. If you can live like that, each moment will change you. If you are willing to experience the gift of life instead of fighting with it, you will be moved to the depth of your being. When you reach this state, you will begin to see the secrets of the heart. The heart is the place through which energy flows to sustain you. The energy inspires you and raises you. It is the strength that carries you through life. It is the beautiful experience of love that pours through your whole being. This is meant to be going on inside of you at all times. The highest state you have ever experienced is simply the result of how open you were. If you don't close, it can be like that all the time. Don't sell yourself short. This can go on all the time. Unending inspiration, unending love, unending openness. That is the natural state of a healthy heart.
Eternal. And, you know, one of the markers for how we create what happens in our world is to watch our speech. And when one wants things to go on and on and on, if one still has samskaras related to the past, then they'll do things like talk about unending. You know, you hear people who want to or have acquired the understanding that eternal life is possible, and they'll move into language because they haven't resolved death in them yet. They'll move into language about being immortal. You hear people talk about, oh, I'm an immortalist. Well, thank you. I'm not an immortalist. I'm an eternalist, yes. But take a look at what you've been tricked into when you use the word immortal. What is it? I'm mortal. What is mortal? Death. I'm dead. That's the trick of the mind when something is unresolved. That's why, again, always being conscious of language is a key, because as Yeshua said, the power of life and death is in our words. The frequencies of words are really key importance here. Cool. Well, that's a fun way to do that reading, Jeannie.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Fits perfectly.
Like the bringing it into what we teach and the parallels of it.
Yeah, it opens another perspective, another language, another perspective, and builds more brain cells. And we've got about 8 minutes left, so let's just check out the phone lines and see if there's anybody out there. Give our audience a chance. If there's anybody out there with a thought or question, anything happening we can support you with, any questions that this reading and commentary have aroused for you, push 1. And again, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, call the number 563-999-3581. When you call that number, you're listening to the show directly. And then if you push 1, that raises a hand in the control panel, and we'll be having a conversation. So what's on your mind? How can we support you?
It is all quiet on this end.
All quiet. Well, I'm feeling complete at this point if nobody has a question or a thought for us. And I know we have a young lady in there that's chomping at the bit. Ari Rain is with us today, and we've got some things planned with her. So I'd rather continue the conversation if there's somebody out there with a thought for us. But if everybody's feeling complete, I am. How about you, Jeannie? Do you have any other thoughts to share?
No, I am complete.
Well, then I'm going to thank everybody for joining us and invite you to create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to